Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I looked at off the wire this week. The first guy, Spencer Steer of the Cincinnati Reds. So the Reds here, they've been finding some players over the last few weeks here, coming up from the minors and producing. I know Steer's been up the whole year, but now he's starting to get things going. So on the season for Steer, pretty solid numbers: 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, 28 runs scored, a stolen base, 285 batting average, and a 351 on base. And over the last couple weeks, he's been on fire. 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 370 average, and a 424 on base. So right now, he's available in tons of fantasy leagues here still. Is Steer in 64% of leagues. In the last few games, he's going out there and he's making the most of it. And he qualifies at first and third, which is good versatility as well. May 24th versus the Cardinals, 4 for 5, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. May 25th versus the Cardinals, 2 for 4 with a run. May 26th at the Cubs, 3 for 6, a run and a rib. May 27th at the Cubs, 0 for 3 with a run. And May 28th at the Cubs in that one, 2 for 5 with a homer and 2 RBIs. So Spencer Steer, he's making the most of his opportunity. Joey Votto's been out for the season. I know Christian Encarnacion Strand's been tearing it up in the minor leagues, but Spencer Steer looks like he's here to stay with this red team on the big club, and he's playing good baseball. So right now, while he's out there still, like I said, in 64% of fantasy leagues, a player who's going to give you power. He's going to drive in runs. He plays in a good ballpark like Cincinnati, where the ball flies out and there's a bandbox. He's definitely the top pickup this week, I believe, is a hitter. The next hitter is his teammate, Matt McLain of the Cincinnati Reds. So McLain, one of the top prospects in all Major League Baseball, and it took him a couple weeks to get going, is McLain. But now he's come up and he's hitting the baseball well, and he's been on fire as well. Right now, available McLain in 62% of leagues. So on the season for McLain, making the most of his opportunity since being called up a couple weeks ago. On the season, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 13 runs scored, a 343 batting average, and a 450 on base. And McLain coming off a 4 for 5 ball game on May 28th, where he's hitting the baseball. He had big numbers in the minor leagues, where obviously he hit over 300 with 12 home runs. So McLain, he's getting an opportunity every day for this red team. I know Elly De La Cruz, he's down there in the minors tearing it up as well. And this red team, they got some good prospects and good young hitters now coming up, and you've definitely been seeing it over the last few weeks. So McLain playing shortstop, a weak position obviously, where he can help owners, and batting second in the lineup. May 23rd versus the Cardinals, 1 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs. May 24th versus the Cardinals, 2 for 5, a homer, and RBI, 2 runs scored. May 25th versus the Cardinals, 1 for 3. May 26th at the Cubs, 3 for 5, a run. 27th at the Cubs, 2 for 5, 2 runs, a rib. And May 28th at the Cubs, 4 for 5, a run in that one, an RBI, and a stolen base. So right now, McLain playing great baseball for this Cincinnati Red team. We don't know if it's going to hold up to these standards, but looking at his minor league stats, he definitely tore things up, is Matt McLain in the minors, and hopefully can continue the great start so far this season in the early going in the majors. The next hit is Marcell Ozuna of the Atlanta Braves. So Ozuna, he looked like a guy who could have been cut a few weeks ago, but he's definitely turned things on, and the power's definitely been a big thing for Ozuna over the last few weeks. We know in the shortened season, he led the league in batting average in 2020, but right now, this year, he's bringing the power back, and the batting average, not as great last season as well, but Ozuna's been hot over the last month. On the year, 11 home runs, 22 RBIs, 20 runs scored, a 231 average, and a 318 on base. But the last month, he's been on a tear: 9 home runs, 20 RBIs, 16 runs scored, 347 average, and a 417 on base. So right now, Ozuna playing power baseball for this Brave team. Obviously, the DH pays great dividends. Player like Ozuna, who's not a great fielder, and right now he's hitting for major power. May 23rd versus the Dodgers, 0 for 4. May 24th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs. May 25th versus Philly, 2 for 3, a homer in that one, 3 runs scored. May 26th versus Philly, 3 for 4 with a homer in that ball game. May 27th versus the Phillies, 0 for 4. Ozuna showing power. Definitely he could slump. He's going to strike out a lot. The batting average is going to be low. But right now, well, he's on a tear is Ozuna. He's definitely a solid pickup this week. A guy for utility spot or third outfielder. Next hit is Francisco Alvarez of the New York Mets. So right now, Alvarez, he's tearing it up for this Met team. Former top prospect in all Major League Baseball last season. And now there were rumors they were going to send them down when Omar Narvaez was coming up. But now there's no way this Met team will send down Alvarez. And he's been hitting for big power of late. On the season, 8 home runs, 19 RBIs, 14 runs scored, a 273 average, and a 333 on base. And over the last couple weeks here, 5 home runs, 13 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 353 average, and a 436 on base. So right now, Alvarez showing big power. He got moved up in the lineup from 9th to 2nd in the latest ball game for this New York Met team. And he's hit some clutch home runs games here for him. May 24th at the Cubs, 2 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs. May 25th at the Cubs, 2 for 5, a run. May 26th at the Rockies, 1 for 3. May 27th at the Rockies, 2 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs. And May 28th at the Rockies, 1 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. So right now, a mainstay in this Met lineup. Third on the team in home runs, even though he didn't even start the season with the team, missing the first 2 or 3 weeks before he got called up as Alvarez. And he's been a spark for this Met team, especially in the lineup. So right now, well, catcher we know is a weak position in fantasy baseball, and Alvarez still out there, surprisingly, in 67% of fantasy leagues. But I don't believe that's going to hold. He's one of the top pickups at the hitting position this week. The next hit is Michael Conforto of the San Francisco Giants. At Conforto, we know he's been a streak player throughout his major league career. And right now, this month, he's been on a hot streak. Is Conforto available right now? Not in many fantasy leagues, only at 45%. And on the season, 11 home runs, 27 RBIs, 32 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 240 average, and a 335 on base. But over the last 2 weeks here, he's been on a tear as Conforto. 5 home runs, 14 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a stolen base, a 348 average, and a 385 on base. At Conforto, we know, sat out all last season with a shoulder injury, and he just didn't get the contract he wanted. So right now, this Giant team, they've been starving for hitters over the last few seasons. And Conforto in that cleanup role, he's definitely been playing great baseball of late. May 24th at the Twins, 1 for 5. May 25th at the Brewers, 4 for 4, a homer in that one, and an RBI, a stolen base. May 26th at the Brewers, 1 for 3, 3 runs and RBI. May 27th at the Brewers, 0 for 3 with a rib in that one. And May 28th at the Brewers, 2 for 3 with a run. So right now he's showing power. He's been getting that batting average up big time over the last few weeks here is Michael Conforto. And he's definitely a hitter to go out there and add. He definitely could go on a cold streak because, like I said, he's been a streaky hitter throughout his career. But right now, while he's on a tear, he's a hitter I would pick up this week. The next hitter is Jake McCarthy of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So McCarthy last season, second half, was a fantasy winner from owners, coming up from the minor leagues and putting up big stats, especially with the 23 stolen bases and a 283 batting average and only 320 at-bats. But so far this season, it's been a bad year for him. A homer, 3 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 8 runs scored, a 147 average, and a 237 on base. But he's been called up from the minor leagues here, and he's more of a stolen base guy, obviously, as McCarthy. So if you need stolen bases, and maybe a guy could find it once again for batting average, I would give him an ad. He's not a priority pickup this week, but in deeper leagues, I think he can help fantasy owners, especially if you're looking for stolen bases and runs scored. Right now, available McCarthy in a decent amount of fantasy leagues, still at 64%. So the first 3 games since he got recalled, May 26th versus Boston, 0 for 2 with stolen base. May 27th versus the Red Sox, 1 for 3. And May 28th versus the Red Sox, 0 for 3 in that one. So right now, they'll open a series versus a weak Rockies pitching staff coming up here today is this Arizona Diamondback team. So maybe McCarthy could get going. And like I said, he's more of a deeper league ad, but we know the upside with McCarthy after what we saw last season in a decent sample size. The next hit is Jose Siri of the Tampa Bay Rays. So the Rays, it seems like they find these players each and every year come out of nowhere. And I know Siri's been on the team the last couple seasons, but this year he's showing power, and he's had some clutch hits as well on the year. 9 home runs, 20 RBIs, 21 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 250 average, and a 295 on base. But over the last 2 weeks, as the playing time's gone up, 5 home runs, 8 RBIs, 9 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 306 average, and a 324 on base. So right now, Siri's going out there, pretty much playing every day for this Tampa Bay Ray team, and available in 88% of fantasy leagues. So if you could get a player like Siri showing power and on the best team record-wise in baseball so far, he's a guy I recommend to get, obviously. The last few games, May 23rd versus the Jays, 1 for 3. May 24th versus the Blue Jays, 2 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. May 26th versus the Dodgers, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. May 27th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 4. May 28th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 4, run and a stolen base. If you need stolen bases, some power, and a player on a good team like the Rays, like I mentioned, I think Siri's a decent ad this week. The next hitter is Owen Miller the Milwaukee Brewers. So Miller, a very versatile player for fantasy baseball. And he's been playing great of late for this Brewer team. I know he left the game Sunday with a right forearm contusion, but he's day-to-day right now is Owen Miller. So qualifies at first, second, and third base is Miller. So on the season, he hasn't had many at-bats yet, but he's been starting to play every day. 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 16 runs scored, a 319 average, and a 355 on base. And so Miller's getting it going now for this Brewer team. Their offense has been up and down this season, and Miller's been one of the top pickups off the wire this week. He added in 38% of fantasy leagues, but right now he's still out there in 56% of leagues. So May 23rd versus Houston, 3 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, a stolen base. May 24th versus Houston, 1 for 3, a homer. May 25th versus the Giants, 0 for 4. May 26th versus the Giants, and that one 0 for 3. May 27th versus the Giants, 0 for 2 with a stolen base. And May 28th versus the Giants, 2 for 2 before he left with 2 runs scored and 2 RBIs. So right now, while he's playing good baseball, and hopefully it's a day-to-day injury with the forearm bruise here for Owen Miller, he's definitely a player that can help fantasy owners, but I don't think it's going to be a long-lasting player that can help owners. But as of now, while he's hot, this is what you got to do in fantasy. You pick up the hot hand, you ride it out, and if the guy struggles and goes back to doing nothing, you just drop him. And that's the case, I believe, that could happen with Miller. The next hit is Paul DeJong of the St. Louis Cardinals. So DeJong, he's been on a tear of late, especially showing the power since he's come back up from the minor leagues. On the season, 8 home runs, 18 RBIs, 21 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 258 average, and a 339 on base. So DeJong, a player we've seen this before from him, come up, show a lot of power after coming back to the major leagues, and then fizzling out. But right now, while he's playing great baseball and showing the power, like I mentioned here, is Paul DeJong. He's definitely a hitter I would add this week, and he's obviously a shortstop, a weak position in fantasy baseball. So the last few games for DeJong: May 22nd versus the Reds, 2 for 5, a homer, 4 ribs. May 23rd at the Reds, 1 for 3, 2 runs, a stolen base. May 25th at the Reds, 0 for 3. May 26th at the Guardians, 0 for 4. May 27th at the Guardians, 0 for 4. May 28th at the Guardians, 0 for 4. So right now, the last 4 games have been a struggle here for DeJong, but I'm still going to give him an opportunity. We saw what kind of streak he could get on, especially with the power early in the last couple weeks. And if he fizzles out as well, he's just another hitter you could drop as well. And the final hit I look to add off the wire this week here, Zach McKinstry of the Detroit Tigers. So McKinstry, talk about versatility, qualifies at second, third, short, and outfield. And right now he's been a big player for this Tiger team over the last couple weeks. Available right now, 91% of fantasy leagues is McKinstry. On the season, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 23 runs scored, 10 stolen bases already, a 291 average, and a 410 on base. But the last couple weeks here, he's been on the tear. 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 10 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 355 average, and a 543 on base, which is out of control, getting on base more than 50% of the time here for McKinstry. So he's going out there, he's making the most of his opportunity, being the table setter for this Tiger team. We know the offense isn't good, but he's doing a good job right now as McKinstry, and definitely a play there this week, May 23rd at the Royals, and that 1 for 4 with a run. May 24th at the Royals, 1 for 4. May 25th versus the White Sox, 0 for 1, 2 runs, a stolen base. May 26th versus the White Sox, 1 for 2 with a run. May 27th in that one, 3 for 4 homer, 2 RBIs, a stolen base in that game. And May 28th versus the White Sox, 2 for 5, a run and 2 stolen bases. If you need stolen bases, runs scored, and great batting average right now, and on-base percentage, and a lot of versatility, that's exactly what McKinstry's bringing to fantasy owners. I would give him an add this week. So that's a few hitters I look to add here in Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season.